Well, hello everyone. This is John Byrne with Poets and Quants. Welcome to our admissions panel. We are going to spend the next 45 minutes exploring what four great undergraduate business schools do to students when they get there, what it takes to get in, what a business major these days actually studies, and what the outcomes are if in fact you do major in business at one of these four schools. So let me introduce our panelists. We have four great people here. Rachel Reiser, who is the Assistant Dean of Undergraduate Student Experience and Services at the Questrom School of Business at Boston University. Welcome.
Thank you.
We have Chanel White, the Assistant Dean and Director of Divisional Advising, and she is at Miami University, the Farmer School of Business. Welcome. Megan Ray, who happens to be the Director of Admissions at Indiana University's Kelley School of Business in a wonderful college town, Bloomington, Indiana. And we have Kelley Jansen, the Director of Undergraduate Admissions and Recruitment at the Gies College of Business at the University of Illinois. Welcome, everybody. So, one thing I want to just get straight off the bat, because there's often a lot of confusion about this. And this is something that parents always want to know. When their children apply your program, overall university, or are they applying to the business school? And if their children get into your schools and are accepted, do they go straight into the business program, or do they wait a few years? Or do, in fact, they have to reapply again to the business school for admission as sophomores for their junior and senior years? Let's start with Kelley Jansen.
Yeah, so we do have direct admission for first-year students coming in. So when they apply to the University of Illinois, they are able to list out a first choice and a second choice major. And so if a student lists out business undeclared as their first choice major, that's specifically the way that we bring in our undergraduate students into Gies. So then that way they don't have to pick a specific major right away. They actually have 2 full years to explore our majors before they have to declare a major. So when a student applies, they do apply directly to the College of Business and can be directly admitted there.
Right. Megan, how about it, Kelley?
Sure. So the way that we do the process is that a student applies to Indiana University. And if their students are going to be applying who are here with us this evening, make sure you get that in by November 1 for the most scholarship consideration from the institution. But we have students who meet a certain criteria of a GPA and a test score, and once admitted to Indiana University, if they meet that GPA and test score, they're automatically offered direct admission into the program. But we also offer a secondary path by which students can let us know that they're interested through an independent petition. And we also have a standard admission process, which is where they come through, take the same classes, and then join the class at the beginning of the sophomore year. So the business curriculum is open to all students, though, in that first year.
Right. And Rachel, how about at Boston University?
Yeah, so at BU, all of our undergraduate admissions processes are centralized and managed by our admissions office. Students can apply directly into Questrom School of Business, and we have a class usually of about 400 entering freshmen each year, as well as a sizable portion of transfer students from other colleges and universities. Students who are BU students also have the opportunity through what's colloquially called 1BU to take what we call a set of gateway courses that allow them, if they change their mind about their major and wish to transfer into the School of Business, if they meet those requirements, then we accept them as well.
Great. And Chanel, Miami?
Yes, absolutely. So we are primarily a direct admit institution. So when students apply via the common application, they will select a first choice major. As long as that major is a business major, they will be considered for direct admission to the Farmer School. Students can also seek admission as a current Miami University student. So if they weren't sure or they weren't admitted directly to the Farmer School, they can seek admission after 1 year.
Great. And I want to get that straight because there are a lot of parents that might be confused by that. There are some business schools that in fact accept juniors. And so therefore you literally have to apply twice, first to the university, and then depending on your performance in your first 2 years, the business school will decide whether or not you get in your last 2 years of your university experience. And I think that direct admit programs are the way to go if your children know for sure that they want to major in business. And if they don't, as we've heard here before, you still have a shot at getting into the business school later on. So that's really great news. The other news that I think is important here that we discussed offline is that all 4 programs here are test optional. So it's not necessary to take an SAT or an ACT. You can take it, you can submit it. It will be considered along with all your other materials in your application, but it's not absolutely necessary, particularly now. And I think most schools are more generous about this policy given the pandemic and the difficulty of taking tests and studying for them. So let's talk a little bit about who you attract, what your current class profile is, and give a sense of the international representation and the overall diversity of the class. Chanel, we stop with you. Let's start with you at Miami.
Absolutely. So for the fall 2020, the middle 50th percentile of students gaining direct admission to the farmer school had an ACT of 26 to 31, SAT 1210 to 1380, and high school GPA 3.56 to 4.13. Now, obviously, we are test optional, so we conduct a holistic and comprehensive review of every component of the applicant profile, including activities, essays, involvement, all of it.
So the class you enrolled, what's the gender split? And do you have many international students in your program?
Yes, so we have 6.3% of our first year of our students are international students. And we saw our applications from female students increase 15.1% this year. We have a Jenny Derrick is our dean. And so, maybe Dean Derrick may have had some influence on that. We are very proud to have Jenny as our dean this year. And
I'm sorry. So the percentage of young women in your program would be what now?
Is increasing. Yes. So we have almost 40% of our students.
Okay, great. Rachel, how about at Boston University? Where does it profile?
Sure. I'll pick up a bit where Chanel dropped off. We too are actually delighted about our first female dean, Dean Susan Fournier, the first dean of the business school. And actually the most recent academic dean. We haven't had an academic dean coming up from the faculty ranks for about 40 years. So very exciting to have Susan in this role for the past few years. Our entering class this year, the class of 2025, had a 3.79 high school average GPA. That puts them in about the 93rd, 94th percentile of their class. The average SAT, again, test optional, just like you said, Chanel, it was 1438 this year. About 20% of our class identifies as first-generation college student. Over 25% of the class is international, and 17% of this incoming class identifies an underrepresented race or ethnicity. Our female to male split, we're a bit higher than what you described, Chanel. We're in the high 40s, closing in on 50% female. We're actually down a little bit. We used to be just about 50-50. We're down a couple of percentage points, but we look forward to, gaining that traction back again.
Great, thank you. And Megan at Indiana Kelley, what's it look like?
Sure. So we brought in our largest direct admission class of students in the history of the school this year. And that group was made up of 12% underrepresented students, 3.8 international students, which we were really excited about because we're clawing our way back to where we were at 5 or 6% over the last few years. And then for the entering class, we were just under 34% for women and right at 25% resident. And that's something that's exciting for us. We typically will see that a larger percentage of our students at the school are non-resident, and that certainly bore out this year, but we have some really fantastic resident students who took us up on the opportunity to join us, and we can't wait to show them why it's so special here.
Terrific. And I know these are big classes too. Kelley, you enrolls how many people in an incoming class? And then, of course, there are transfers and things later on. But the incoming class of business majors is how large?
This year, our incoming class of direct admission students was a little over 2,700 students, John.
Wow. Now,
Yes.
I know Gies also enrolls a very large class. Kelley, how large is your incoming class?
Well, actually, our class this year was one of the largest that we've had, if not the largest. We had 670 incoming first-year students. So we actually are a small college within the large university. So we have a little over 3,100 undergraduate students total. And we also do take students who transfer into the College of Business from other programs outside of the university, but then also those that do start in one program and transfer in. So for our student population this year, we do have that large freshman class, but we're sitting around 3,100 students that are there. In terms of residency, we are predominantly Illinois residents, but we do have, a healthy population of international and out-of-state students. International students are sitting at about 14% overall for the whole college. And when we look at the female to male ratio, overall, we're at 42% are female and 15% are traditionally underrepresented students. So, we are excited about, as Megan mentioned too, like being excited about all of these new types of students that are choosing to come to the college and what they're going to bring to our Gies community.
Terrific. Now, tell me what sets your program apart from others. And let's start with you, Kelley, at Gies. I know that this year there's a major thrust on experiential learning, and that clearly is a big deal for the school. Why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, one of the things that at our school that we value is really community and collaboration. And so we look at that from multiple of angles, but in terms of curriculum, we make sure that our students have a live business experience. So you referred to the experiential learning program. We have a set of cohort classes that every student group moves through during their years at Gies. So the first year students have one course, second year students, and so on. And so our third year students participate in a class called Business in Action. And that is a group where the students are paired into groups, but they work directly with a real business and are given a real company problem or strategic objective that they're looking to accomplish. And so these students are engaging with those companies about something that is meaningful to them and does have direct impact. So it's a lot of great hands-on experience, things that students can talk about in their interviews, but also helps them realize, is this something that I want to go into? Do I like this style of work? And kind of help them figure out what do they feel drawn to in terms of a career and how they go about doing that. So in terms of curriculum, we do that. And then, for ours too, when we think about like what's important for us and the Gies mindsets that we have. So we look to try to help nurture our students to be empathetic and to be global and innovative, professional and purpose-driven. And so as we look at both our curriculum and we, program and design experiences for those students, we're really focused on nurturing those types of mindsets.
Great. And Megan, at Kelley, what's your raison d'etre?
Sure. I think the breadth of programs, John, is one of those things. So we have 12 different primary majors and 7 different co-majors. So one of those is leading diverse, equitable, and inclusive environments. And that is a brand new co-major that just came on board. 72% of our students co-major in the end. So it's a pretty great opportunity to come. And even though we're a large school, you can really personalize what your degree program is in terms of what your interests are. I think also our Kelley Compass courses are, of course, something that I continue to believe in as really preparing our students, because we don't just offer career services, we embed it right into the curriculum. And so you're not getting to your junior year and thinking, oh gosh, I got to get a resume together, right? Like we're going to have you start working on that in the first and second year. So, and then we're going to cap it off with a seminar on professionalism as well. So that part is really exciting. I think the other piece that I'd say is remarkable for Kelley is our Kelley Institute for Social Impact, which is where students match their interest in business with doing good in the world. And they work with a lot of both domestic, local, and international nonprofits to do that.
Terrific. Rachel, at Boston University, what sets you apart?
So I think the sort of breadth of opportunity is something I would want to jump on here. Questrom's place within a large university offers endless academic and co-curricular opportunities for our students. They start with their business coursework from day one in the business program, but it's complemented by strong academic opportunities across the university, and actually a really cornerstone approach to general education, what's called the BU Hub, which I encourage folks to look into. The BU Hub is really a very different approach to general education, where students focuses on the development of capacities, what we think of as habits of the mind, that really help develop a student not only as a lifelong learner, but for their professional life going forward. We too, like Megan and Kelley, embed career curriculum into the requirements of the program. We firmly believe that we're trying to develop students with a toolkit for life in terms of career management. So we're very excited about that. And I think sort of the broad nature of the community, as I talked about, the exposure to students from not just around the country, but around the world, tremendous teaming, something we get great accolades on, the students' teaming experience and their preparation for the modern workplace in these team environments, but where they're also exposed not just to outstanding peers, but a top-notch faculty as well. So there's a lot of unique academic facets, but it's really complemented by the co-curricular experience and where they intersect. I'll just make a quick mention of something called BU Innovate at BU, which is our innovation hub at the university. It transcends the business school. It's not just about entrepreneurship, it's the whole university, but Questrom is incredibly engaged in the innovation program.
Great. And Miami University?
Absolutely. The Farmer School is the first choice for tomorrow's leaders. Our students all engage in hands-on learning, and that starts in the very first year with our first year integrated core. So the first year integrated core is a unique client-based project that all first year students engage in. They take courses in communication, coding, and computational thinking, creativity, and business decision making. They work in teams all throughout the semester on a client-based project with real client data, and then they'll present their findings to C-suite executives at the end of the semester. So it's an incredibly robust first year experience with a great deal of hands-on learning. And the students really get to dive into that business curriculum in the very first year. Our courses are all taught by faculty. They're not taught by graduate assistants. So we have faculty who are deeply committed to undergraduate teaching and are prominent scholars in their field. So that deep commitment to undergraduate teaching, coupled with that really unique first year experience, makes this a great place to start your business education.
So let me ask you all this. I think there are parents out there who wonder if their children major in business, does that mean they're not going to get the advantages of a broader liberal education? Now, so I wonder if you could tell me, if you major in business, how many of your credits have to be in the business school versus the rest of the university? Let's go down the line. Chanel?
That's a great question. So our Miami Plan Foundation is our foundation for liberal education. And we have a deep belief in liberal education. And so all of our students are going to take a breadth of curriculum outside of the school. And that's 42 credit hours in non-business coursework.
And the actual credit hours in the business coursework would be how much?
That varies. So as some others have mentioned, we have a lot of students who choose to do second majors and minors, co-majors inside the school. So it does depend in some ways on the student selections in that regard.
Right. So you can take more electives and specialize in certain areas, whether it be supply chain management or business analytics or finance or marketing, the traditional disciplines as well. Rachel, what's the split look like at Boston University?
Also about 50%. Half of the coursework by design is intended to be, by and large, outside of the business school and half within the business school, within Questrom. Our approach to what I mentioned earlier, the BU Hub, general education, which I should say, is not sort of 2 years of coursework and then you focus on your major. It is interspersed throughout your entire curricular experience, coursework both within Questrom and outside of Questrom and other parts of the university, and a wide array of choices from which to choose. I saw a lot of nodding heads, and I think we all probably firmly believe that any really good business program is not just about the business coursework. We are trying to develop the leaders of tomorrow, and that means exposure to all kinds of disciplines: art, humanities, economics, other social science and natural science areas. Our Questrom students tend to hone in a little bit more in their senior year, where they take courses towards their concentration. And we offer 15 different concentrations as an area of specialization for Questrom students.
Great. And Megan, I'm assuming that it's roughly the same at IU Kelley?
It's pretty similar. So out of the 120 credits that we're required by state law to grant a degree for, 36 of those hours are specifically outside of the curriculum within the first 2 years of that degree plan. One of the things that's interesting, though, is that some of the majors have some cross-pollination with other academic units on campus. And so if you're studying sustainable business, you may end up taking courses from the School of Public and Environmental Affairs as well, and they'll count for your business major.
Right. Great. And then at Gies College of Business?
Yeah, as was mentioned, it does vary based upon the student's interest area, and if they are, pursuing one major, if they're pursuing double majors or dual degrees. In general, though, we kind of divide out ours into quadrants, and so you'd say that roughly 50% of those would be covered by those general education requirement courses or those elective courses. But sometimes our students can select those elective courses to be within a business curricula, whether it's ours or whether it's others across campus.
Now, do students have fun in business, or is it all business, Kelley?
I think they do. I mean, I think that, one thing that I have some student admissions team members that work for us, and then also some student ambassadors. And I love hearing about the different projects that they have in classes and other things that they find, I think, that they're surprised that they enjoy. They're like, oh, I wasn't sure about this. Maybe I didn't know. But once they got into it, they're like, oh, this was really cool. And that understanding and knowledge that comes in and seeing about how it's applicable. I think that, they like finding out what they like, but they also like finding out what they don't like so that they know that that's not the path they want to go. So it helps give them some direction too.
I often think that if you're a junior and senior in high school and you actually know you want to major in business, you're kind of ahead of the game, because a lot of people have no conception of what the different jobs are that people do when they graduate with a business major. Do you find that to be the case, Rachel?
Yeah, I do find that to be the case. And I think that as students are exposed to different areas of study and principles as they continue through the program, they really start to see what opens up to them. And the fact is, we talk with students all the time, business is everywhere. It's not just about going into this field or going into that field. There are business opportunities in every industry, including the not-for-profit world, education, et cetera. And I think our students really attach to that. They're really excited about the different paths that they can follow. And I will just add to what Kelley said, they do have fun. Business students, I think, have a reputation perhaps of being a little more, hyper-focused. I think that that's an unfounded reputation. Our students have a blast, both in their studies and also in their co-curricular activities.
Well, that's good to hear. Now, Megan, I'm sure that your students have fun as well at Indiana Kelley. What's your take on how do you decide whether you should major in, meaning the sub-major? If your major is business, how do you know if you're interested in marketing or operations or strategy or finance or any one of the many fields that you can specialize in?
There's a couple different ways we do it. When I'm meeting with a student who's kind of struggling with this, what I'll tell them is straight out of the gate, it doesn't matter. Like, we don't admit to IU and we don't admit to the Kelley School based on major. So put whatever you want down there, right? Like, we just don't
Right.
care. A Kelley student changes their major an average of 4 times, right? While they're in Kelley and still graduate on time. So it's very, very common. We help them through the Kelley Compass 1 course where they do some of that personality typing, that values clarification. We push them into different student organizations so that they can experiment it. I mean, if they're going to the Student Accounting Society meetings and they want to scrape their eyeballs out, that's probably not a good fit for them, right? So maybe they should try the marketing club instead, or the investment banking club. We also have coursework that is built into the curriculum, like exploring entrepreneurship or introduction to finance careers and concepts that helps give them a little bit of an idea, because we know that a lot of students coming in don't understand the breadth.
Right, exactly. And Chanel, a lot of parents kind of push their kids into business because, higher education today is expensive, and reassurance that there's going to be an outcome, that their kids are actually going to get a job afterward. But what do you do with someone who arrives on campus, is pushed into the major of business, but really would prefer to study music or philosophy or any other topic?
Well, ultimately, we want you to study what's going to be a good fit for you. And so as the student, you'll have the opportunity to explore through the liberal education some other areas of interest outside of business. Luckily, our students will all take a first-year experience course taught by their FSB academic advisor. And so this course will help them to explore the different functional areas within the farmer school. So we'll do a lot of major and minor exploration to help them. So if you're kind of inkling toward business, but you just don't know what you want to pursue within the School of Business, that's okay. You've got 2 years before you have to make that decision. And we will also help explore outside of business. Many of our students have non-business minors, and we absolutely encourage them to pursue those other areas of interest. It can be great when you are taking a course in American studies or political science or something that you have never, thought about doing before, and then you find that course and you really enjoy it. One of my students actually landed in an art and architecture history minor because he took a course and then found out actually he's really interested in it, and did a project with our art museum on the business side of art. So it ended up in a minor, and you never know kind of where you'll land.
Well, that's good to hear that people have that kind of latitude. Now, Megan, what do you really look for in an applicant? Is there one first thing that you look at? Because obviously all these schools are selective. A lot of people don't get in. And we know that business is the most popular major in America, and many schools are capped out on enrollment. So what's the first thing you look for in an applicant, Megan?
We have a little bit of a different philosophy on that, John. Really, like, the whole institution is permeated with this Hoosier hospitality. So we kind of believe in being like real straightforward right out of the gate. So if you apply to IU, you get admitted to IU, you hit these criteria, we're offering you direct admission. Like, there's no review, there's no like, tell me about this or this or this. We're just going forward. Where it starts to become more reviewy, as it were, is when we're in that petition process. And then we're really looking for a wide variety of experiences. We're looking really closely at the high school transcript. Did they take challenging coursework? Did they take progressively challenging coursework? Were they prepared quantitatively for what the degree is going to require? A whole slate of different things. So I would say that if a student doesn't meet those automatic criteria, they should petition, because there is no set formula for what a successful petition student looks like.
Okay. And Rachel, what about Questrom? What's the first thing you look for in an applicant?
So the admissions selection process is really as varied as the applicants that apply. There is no one particular fit. There are many different backgrounds and perspectives that are really sought out. Having said that, I think, the top thing on the list, obviously, is that we work to ensure that the students we enroll are academically competitive and can be successful in the classroom. We certainly want to make sure that people are set up for success. So that's first and foremost. But we are looking at evaluating so much more in the aspects of a student's application. It's a really holistic review. How does the applicant respond to setbacks? What are their goals? How do they advocate for themselves? It's important to also take the context into account. We really look at kind of what's their academic background? What have they been involved in? What areas are they interested in? We too don't care about what they think they plan to concentrate in. That's not what we're interested in. They can concentrate in whatever they want when they get here. But we really want to make sure that we're crafting a really cohesive class of very varied backgrounds and interests.
Yeah, that's great. Kelley, what about at Gies? Is there a thing that you really look for in an applicant?
I think that, similar to the others, using that holistic approach helps us to look at our cohort and to see, like what are we building upon, and having those variety of students that come in, considering things like their academic, performance when it comes to coursework and rigor and grades, of course, and if they submit test scores, those are considered. But also, that balance of management of responsibilities along with their their classes. But what are you committed to? Your family, if you have family responsibilities, or employment, or student organizations, all of those types of things. And in particular too, looking at their interests and goals, but also just overall the ways that an applicant could contribute to the Gies community through personal attributes, like Rachel mentioned, the unique backgrounds, experiences, challenges, achievements, all of those types of things that come together so that it's not just based on an academic review, it's, kind of the bigger holistic approach.
Right. Chanel, how do you evaluate the intangible qualities outside the GPA, the test scores, a student's class rank?
That's a great question. One thing that we really look for is sustained commitment. So leadership in organizations, or perhaps a part-time position. Have you had sustained commitment in some of those roles? So we're really looking for quality over quantity. So when we are evaluating candidates, we're really, for admission to Miami University, those are some of the characteristics that we're looking for. So instead of member of 100 organizations, deep, passionate commitment in which you're really dedicated to things that interest you in a smaller number of organizations.
I want to go back to something that I think Rachel said, that, a business education prepares you for life. And I will say this about all of your schools: you're teaching people life skills that will help them no matter what they do. Things like, how do you look for a job? How do you network with others? How do you work in teams effectively and collaborate? And how do you do that with diverse types of people? How do you lead others? These are skills that are in demand no matter what you do, whether you work for a nonprofit, whether you work for a government agency, an educational institution, or a company. And I think that what really sets apart under business rounding out of the individual, the sort of polishing down the rough edges, the professional development that goes along with the education in all the business basics like marketing and statistics and finance and operations and strategy and leadership. And Megan, you earlier referred to something you'd called Compass. And I want you to talk a little bit about that. And I think every school has its own version of it, because really what it comes down to is professional development. It's teaching people how to navigate themselves in the world, how to find themselves, figure out what they're really good at, what they're really interested in, how to make a good presentation, how to negotiate with people, how to convince people of their point of view, how to be open to other diverse viewpoints. Talk a little bit about Compass, because I think people need to appreciate that if you major in other typical topics in a university, you're not going to get any of this.
It's not as common, for certain. So in the first year of the program, the way that we've built it, the student first focuses on themselves. And so they're going to kind of gut check themselves. Like, how do I feel about these aspects of business? Like, where do my values lead me? What's important to me? And then in that year, they also are perfecting their LinkedIn profile. So they're analyzing other people's LinkedIn profiles, getting to know. I can always tell when they've done that assignment because I'll get a whole bunch of requests, right, on LinkedIn right afterwards from students that I've worked with. It's so great. In the second year, they focus on teamwork. And that allows them to become fluent in the language of team so that they're able to talk to employers and recruiters, those around them about, this is what I'm bringing to your organization and this is how I operate. I can do this, but this is my preferred style. And this is what I really like to do. And then in the third year, focusing on those pieces of pushing yourself forward in a professional manner that's going to kind of line the runway for the rest of their career in that process. But I think the fundamental piece is just kind of helping them tap into who they are. I mean, the change over the first year can be so dramatic. I had a student who visited me his first year and he sat in the office and he said, you know, Megan, I really want to be famous. I want to make a lot of money. I want to do these things. And I was like, that sounds great. Go for it. Right. Like, the second year he came and sat down and I said, how's it going? Tell me about what you're doing. He goes, I just want to help people. And I said, I think we are doing our job here, right? Like, great. We are helping you figure out what actually is most important to you once you're in your own environment and you're running your own show. It's great to make money, right? If you want to be famous, go after that, right? But if there's something else that just hasn't been uncovered yet because you haven't been in the right environment, we're going to provide that for you.
And I think you actually raise a good point here. I think most business schools today believe that business should serve a purpose, and younger people are very interested in having a positive impact on their society, their community, if not the world. And I think business schools have basically tuned up their curriculum and their missions to be in line with those desires by young people. Now, Kelley, at Gies, I know there's a phrase called business with purpose, right?
Yeah, and exactly what you mentioned. It's about, not just, the curriculum that we have, but helping students figure out what is your purpose? What do you want to move towards? And how can you have a bigger impact? Both within your own community, but then also on a larger scale. And so encouraging our students, to follow those passions. You mentioned students being interested in entrepreneurship or sustainability or any of these things that we know that are important in current events and that our students are growing up and saying, these are things that I want to pursue in business. We've had more students asking about nonprofit management and other areas that we want to help foster that as well. So certainly trying to help, encourage students to be authentic to who they are, what they'd like to accomplish. And, have some students that do go in, more traditional routes, but can still have a great impact, as well as those who are exploring and going out on their own and forging new ways and building out new, business pathways in those areas that are really important to them.
Right. Rachel, can you speak to the professional development side of the curriculum for a business student?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a scaffolded career exploration, career management set of seminars, one in the first year, one in the second year, and one either third or fourth year. These are very exploratory, but also skill building, very focused on many of the things that we're talking about here, the career management skills that are necessary for lifelong career progression. They're also connected to where students are, not just in their personal and professional journey as a student, but also in the relationship to the other academic areas. So for example, they're really getting, it's layering on to teamwork that they might be exposed to through our management and organizations core required course. These courses are all taught by professional career advisors who also do a ton of one-on-one advising, workshops, small group advising, et cetera, to help students as they develop this. But also taught in some part by our faculty in our management and organizations department who come from a background sort of organizational behavior, organizational leadership, and so forth. We place a big emphasis on that career development and the exploration that comes with it. And in fact, I lead an area that is a combined academic and career advising office because we recognize for our students that their academic choices are absolutely not divorced from their career goals and aspirations.
Right. And that's the other thing. And this is why a lot of parents encourage your children to major in business, because there is attention paid to your career. There are people dedicated to helping your children connect with the world of employment. You're not abandoned in your senior year and at graduation by business school, as you might be. And I'll say this, you don't have to say this, in the history department, in the English department, geography department, you name your department. Chanel, tell me about your professional development activities at Miami.
Absolutely. So as some others have shared, we do start that in our first year experience course. And so that course is going to include a tremendous amount of career development in the first year. And then that continues. It is embedded in the curriculum where you're going to continue to work on significant client-based projects. Also, our business organizations are very active, and our students are really involved in business orgs that are doing consulting, client-based consulting. So you're going to get a lot of hands-on experience and mentorship to help you cultivate that. Tonight in our office, the Multicultural Business Association was meeting in the conference room next to me, and they were doing some resume review because they're all headed over to a pre-night with some employers. So that sort of cultural acquisition is really embedded in our student organizations, in our curriculum, all throughout all 4 years. And our alumni network is tremendous. We have really dedicated Miami alumni who are so thrilled to give back their time and to work with Miami students. So as Megan indicated earlier, you know, LinkedIn, job shadowing, internships, and reaching out to the Miami alumni network. We have 235,000 living alumni at Miami all over the world. And our alumni association is very active. So our alumni are a huge component of the career development as well. So it is really embedded sort of at every nook and cranny in the Farmer School of Business.
Terrific. Now, here's something that every parent's interested in. What types of scholarships are available, and how are candidates assessed for scholarship aid? Chanel, why don't we start with you?
Absolutely. Happy to help with that. So we have a merit guarantee. So merit scholarships are available, and I'll put the merit grid in our link in our chat here. We also have some specialized scholarships that students can apply for via our Honors College, Prodessa Scholars, and Presidential Scholars. These are selective programs that offer scholarships as well that all Miami University applicants can complete a supplemental application to be considered. These do require that additional application, and Presidential Fellows includes an interview process. This is our highest honor. It's a highly competitive scholarship that covers tuition, fees, housing, meals, and a $5,000 academic stipend, academic enrichment stipend every year. So that is our elite scholarship opportunity available, and I'll include the merit grid there as well.
And Rachel, at Boston University, what percentage of the undergrads in the business school get scholarship help of some kind? Oh, I think you're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, indeed.
Okay, thank you. Don't know what happened there. BU has in place a program that is called Affordable BU. Accessibility to education is incredibly important to us. And in fact, the number of Pell Grant recipients has increased exponentially over the past couple of years. BU offers a trustee scholarship, which is a full tuition scholarship, and also a presidential scholarship, which is $25,000 a year. Both have an application deadline. Since we're paying attention to deadlines here, it's December 1st for students who are applying. And the trustee scholarship itself also requires an additional essay, which is available on the Common Application or the Coalition application. All of these things are reviewed by a board of admissions, a faculty committee, and so forth. Super important. These are, just like Chanel said, very prestigious.
Yes. And just general advice, apply early when the treasure chest is full, not later on when it's half empty or there's no money left. So that's really important as well. Kelley, I'm sure that there's plenty of scholarship help there as well, right?
Yeah, so both the university and the college do look to support students. The university has a few specific programs for Illinois residents called Illinois Commitment and Illinois Promise. So those are for, providing financial assistance for students who are in the need category. And then also we have merit-based and need-based scholarships that are offered through the university, but also through our college. There's not a separate application for those. We use a student's application for admission to consider them for those areas.
Great. And Megan, at Indiana University, I'm sure there's both need and merit scholarships. Is that right?
There sure are. So getting all of your material submitted by that November 1st date is really the key component there. And it is get the material there in hand, not hit submit on November 1st, but or send the email to your high school counselor about the transcript, get her done, right? So I think one of the biggest tips that I would have for this process is that every single school is going to have a different way that they administer scholarships. This is a great time to start busting out and working on those Excel spreadsheet skills and keeping those lists of what is due for what institution and where those are, just so that you can keep track. The other thing is I have students every single year in March who are approaching us and asking for additional funding. We go back and look at the email contact list, and we sent them 3 emails encouraging them to apply, and they never opened the email account and filled out the application. So that email account is really key. Check that spam folder. There could be dollars sitting in there.
There you go. Good advice. Okay, last question. And this is something that I think is really important today because, we hear plenty about the helicopter parents who get over involved in this very big and important decision that their children have to make, where to go, and how do you choose a school, and how do you even decide whether you want to major in business. Do you have any, Kelley, let's start with you. Do you have any general advice for how students should play this game? When is pushing too hard different than encouraging your child?
Yeah, so funnily enough, I just went through this process with my own stepson last year, who was a high school senior. And so it was very unique to have the set of, wearing my admissions hat, but then turning it over and being a part of the family and considering it, especially considering the very unusual circumstances we were in last year. So I think that for students, it's important, that they do own the process as much as possible. But it also means, looking at the larger context of, so what do you think that you want to do? Because the other part is that sometimes students may not be ready for a large university initially. Maybe they would be more appropriate for a community college, or maybe they're not ready to go to college at all. But starting that early conversation so that as they start to think about those paths, and maybe if college or a large university isn't ready for them just yet, let's look at what this other path might look like. Or as they go through and they start considering, what do you think that you'd want to study? Or I always encourage students, think about what you don't like, because that's going to be a big driver. Don't even look at those. If you know that this is not something that you want, don't consider them, and as they go through the process, just kind of really, I think, follow that feeling first, facts second, because it is going to be, where do you think that you're going to be the most happy, healthy, and successful? And, I tell students if they're trying to decide between 2 schools, which we all know sometimes it comes down to, put one school's name on a coin on one side and another school's on the other, close your eyes and flip it and see how you feel when it lands. Do you want to flip it again? Or are you satisfied and are you happy about that? Because that's really going to be a good driver on where do you feel that's going to be the best fit for you.
Great. Rachel, your advice?
I'm laughing because I actually lived that flip the coin thing with one of my closest friend's daughters just, a few months ago. I echo really everything that Kelley said. I think it's very important that they own the process. It's not our process. It's not our applications. It's the students' applications. It's the students' choice. But I think a great way to help nudge things along is actually with really focused questions, right? How are things going? What are you nervous about? Do you have a sense of what appeals to you, what you don't like, as Kelley said? Super important to ask really provocative questions to keep them moving along and make sure that they're thinking about what makes sense for them. I will add that this is really good practice for when the students go off to school. Most schools will treat them as adult students, right? So we're not going to be calling mom and dad, sending grades home. Students have to develop their own skill sets in terms of self-advocation, but also self-management. So it's a great practice time.
Yep. Chanel, you have any advice for a parent who has a high schooler who has no idea what to do? Should they just listen or should they start to nudge?
Well, I might suggest that you consider competitive admission programs first, like the farmer school. So, these are all great business institutions. And so understanding that some of those selective institutions that have that direct admit, if you're not sure if you want to be a business major, it's probably better to go ahead and apply to business here in the farmer school because we are primarily a direct admit institution. My best piece of advice, though, is visit campus. Not only will you have a sense of what campus life is like, it is spectacular and stunning here in Oxford, Ohio. It is the picturesque college town, exactly what you would imagine. But you'll also get a sense for that vibrant campus activity and what that life is like as a student. Can I really picture myself living here for the next 4 years? Is this really a place that I can call home? Because our students call this place home. It is the community, it's the heart and soul of the farmer school. And you will see our building is bustling. If I walk out in the halls right now, I'm going to see 25 students that I know. And so it is a really active community. And so I would absolutely encourage you to visit campus. We have a great visit opportunity coming up in October. And so these are just great times to really get a sense of what that life is like.
Okay, a lot of good advice. Process of elimination, you can start there, start with questions, visit campuses. And Megan, last words from you to parents and a little bit of advice on how to do this.
As strange as it may seem, John, what I'm going to say is there's not going to be a bad school. If you're doing your work and looking at a list and listening to your student and talking, they're going to make a great choice. And that is something that I think we all need to celebrate, like the fact that they get to make a choice at this point and get to learn a little bit about different schools. So go ahead and go through it. So, and know that if you and your student are communicating, you can trust the process is going to lead you to some really, really great experiences.
All right, Megan, thank you so much. Kelley, thank you. Rachel, thank you. And Chanel, thank you as well. Had an excellent panel, a lot of really good advice and a lot of information packed in a very short period of time. We have a whole bunch of other events following this one. And so I just want to thank each and every one of our panelists and their schools for participating in this. I think students, would-be students at your schools and their parents have learned a lot tonight. Thank you so much.